Hi, Roy here on my channel, Roy Reads Anything, a booktube channel. I talk about stuff I've read, related bookish matters, with occasional interventions from Dr. Jennie.
Hello!
Who is behind the camera.
Behind the camera.
I'm thinking of possibly a rebrand, partly because people can never remember what the name of the channel is. I know that's perilous in some ways. Anyway, yes, so back with a bit of a book haul. So just talking about stuff that's arrived with our long-suffering postman over the past couple of weeks.
It gives him a sense of purpose, though.
It does, yeah. Well, yeah, I think his purpose of delivering mail is probably kind of not unusual for a postman.
That's the sort of thing.
He never complains.
No.
So, starting with Skullface Omnibus. So they don't make this anymore. A collection of Robert E. Howard stories dating from, I think, about 1974. Skullface Omnibus. It's reprinting a book that was originally published in the 1940s. I think it might have been the first book, maybe the first book, or certainly the first big anthology of Robert E. Howard stories. So, interesting to see how that worked out. So this is a British hardback publication.
It's a fabulous cover.
Yeah, it's sort of
really great.
Obviously, I don't know if that's meant to be like the world with sort of countries on top of the skull.
Oh, it's a map.
It could be. But another little detail is that it belongs to... This book is the property of the Seafarers Education Service. We have this fantastic...
Things I expected you to say.
Yeah. So it is a sort of library, and I feel quite nervous now. Any unauthorised person found in possession of this book is liable to prosecution.
Oh my lord.
Aboard ship, it should be returned to the librarian when finished with. Ashore, it should be returned, postage will be refunded to, and then there's an address. So this was, yes, for the education of sailors. Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Fantastic.
They seem to assume ships would have a librarian, if nothing else. So, I will have read most of these stories before, but and there were other editions of Skullface, so I'll be getting to that. So that is one. Sticking partly with Robert E. Howard, some comics have arrived from also the 1970s. So Conan the Barbarian, the sword and sorcery hero, had a Marvel comic in America. There was a British comic too. He had his own comic called Savage Sword of Conan, which, unlike the American Savage Sword of Conan, was actually reprinting stories from Conan the Barbarian. So, slightly different thing. So it had his own comic, and then after a while, in typical British style, that merged with another title, because I suppose sales were a bit insufficient. So one day, going to the newsagent to get my Savage Sword of Conan, was handed the Avengers, including Conan, which is fine. So I've got a few of those. We're still in Cimmerian September, which this year is about looking at pastiches of Robert E. Howard Conan stories. That's an event devised by Michael K. Vaughan. Of course, the comic stories are definitely pastiches. So I'm looking forward to getting into these. I mean, one thing they sometimes did was make out on the cover that the stories were linked in some way. So here you've got the Avengers battling Ultron and Conan facing an adversary with death across the ages. But in fact they're separate stories. Another cover with Kang. Oh, and the little heads. So we were getting Avengers, Conan, Doctor Strange, I think alternating with Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. Enter the Squadron Sinister, Grandmaster Strikes, And a real classic of let's make out the stories are linked. There's all our Avengers buddies in the present day, looking on some sort of screen. Is it some sort of time viewer where they can see Conan fighting a dragon? Superheroes and savage action in one titanic title. Yes, look forward to exploring those. Meanwhile, contemporary fiction, Untethered by Philippa Holloway. So Philippa Holloway, her first novel came out 2, maybe 3 years ago. It's called The Half-Life of Snails. Really liked that. So excited that I think Parthian Press have published a collection of short stories called Untethered. So that'll probably get to that around November.
So is that lit fic?
I would call it that. Yeah, yeah.
I vaguely remember you talking about Half-Life of Snails.
Yeah, Half-Life of Snails was great. I mean, it was quite challenging subject matter, but dead birds fall from the sky.
Wacko.
An octopus lies stranded on a beach, and a lost shoe becomes a public shrine. Untethered, Philippa Holloway's first collection of short stories, provides an unflinching glimpse of daily life, interrupted by unexpected events. Small intrusions into familiar spaces reveal nothing is as it seems. Sometimes it demands a change of viewpoint, sometimes a cutting loose to find freedom. So I'm expecting some of your sort of echo fiction in here, but yeah, we'll see, Philippa. What else? Also, new living author, The Secrets of Hartwood Hall by BookTube's very own Katie Lumsden. So kind of getting into the zone for Victober. Obviously this isn't actually a Victorian book, but it's neo-Victorian, so thought I'd pick this up and read it at some point. Looks great. Penguin. House is hiding something. So is the new governess. I've said before, where would fiction be without governesses? Or comedians. So Brent,
oh my God, Brent
Butt of Corner Gas fame. So Corner Gas is a Canadian comedy show. Sitcom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was sort of created by and starring Brent Butt, who's also been a stand-up. It's really good.
And it's live action for how many seasons?
There's quite a few seasons, and then they did an animated one as well. Yeah.
Quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because they can do things in the animation, obviously, that they couldn't do. It was very funny.
Yeah.
The live action.
Yeah, so that's worth digging out. So the fact that Brent Butt had written a novel, and it's kind of about comedy, but it's not a comedy novel. So this is a crime thriller set in the 90s. It's 1994. 3 stand-up comedians have embarked on a tour of smaller communities across a remote stretch of rural countryside. Dale is a 40-something comic from Chicago who's on the back half of a mediocre career and thinking about quitting the business. Rin is a 20-something fast-rising star from Dublin with a big Hollywood break on her horizon. The third performer is a local act, a late addition to the bill, who's agreed to open the shows and do all the driving. He goes by the name of Hobie Huge, and he is indeed enormous. His comedic ability, however, is not. He's weirdly eager, annoyingly enthusiastic, and brutally unfunny. All of which wouldn't be so bad if the brutality ended there. By the time Dale and Rin realise Hobie's true talents and disturbing motivation, it may be too late. And their tour becomes less about getting laughs and more about getting off the road alive.
Sounds great.
It does sound fantastic.
Why have you bought it in real, so I can't...
well, it might only be available in real. We'll have to check that out.
So you could read it to me.
Corner Gas, by the way, the only sitcom I believe to have not only mentioned a Mac Bolan executioner book, but to have mentioned a specific Mac Bolan executioner book involved in the plot, and then given it a name check at the end, including the real author, which is quite hard to find unless you read the copyright page.
Wow.
So salute to Brent Butt, if only for doing that.
Yeah. And it's set in Saskatchewan.
Ah, right, right.
Which is very flat. Even flatter than West Lancashire.
Yes, we live in a very flat part of the country.
Very flat.
As you can see.
How?
I'm on a flat surface here. It's not like a sphere or triangle, is it?
No, not.
The story of the Pall Mall Gazette is also ex libris, London Borough of Lewisham Libraries Department. So the story of the Pall Mall Gazette, I've got this to follow up a detail to do with a Victorian sensation novel I'm reading as part of Victober. Plus, I'm fascinated by Victorian periodicals and the lore around them, so this looks great.
I'd just like to say, I always would just like to say something. Now I want to look at the spine. Show me the spine.
The spine?
The spine, yes. That brings back memories.
The actual finger of Dr. Jennie.
Actual finger of Dr. Jennie.
Former librarian.
So you had
is this
activated tape, and you had a thing like a soldering iron that get hot.
Yeah.
And you would put the tape over the spine of the book and write the number on. And that is one of those.
Right. So you
And
wouldn't
it
just
came
use a
in-
regular pen like an animal.
No.
You'd use a special super
device,
permanent
yeah,
marker.
And it looks really horrible unless you've got really nice writing.
Yeah.
But yeah, many's the burn I've got from one of those styluses.
Moving on in the books. I've been wanting to get this for some time, finally found a cheap copy. England Swings SF. So, reading all of the titles. So it's an American paperback published by Ace.
Oi, bloke!
It's an anthology of new wave science fiction from, I'm guessing, late 60s. Let me see. Yeah, 1968. It's in pretty good condition for 1968. So, here's the new wave in science fiction, presented by its foremost advocate, Judith Merril's England Swings SF. And you got some great swinging London graphics.
Does England swing like a pendulum? Don't.
Well, it's stories of speculative fiction. This may be the most important SF book of the year. Or it may be the least. You must judge for yourself. It's a mind-stretching, nerve-sizzling adventure. So far out, it's left the understandable galaxy. Intriguingly, disturbingly mod. Bit too much of a good thing. This book is a must for anyone interested in the future of the field of SF, or in the future. They're closer to the world of Kafka and William Burroughs than to Asimov and Bradbury. It's doubtful that the new wave will sweep away the more traditional science fiction.
Talk about playing it down.
Yeah, well, you're getting both sides of the argument. Buy it, don't buy it, enjoy it, don't enjoy it.
Don't buy it, you won't enjoy it, is what I'm hearing.
I think Sean might have done some videos about new wave science fiction a while ago. If he did, I will link to them. So yeah, this was when SF writers were doing kind of experimental stuff, and you've got a host of people. A lot of it was emanating from a magazine called New Worlds, and a lot of it was coming out of Britain. So authors like J.G. Ballard, Pamela Zoline, who I think is fantastic. Heat Death of the Universe by Pamela Zoline is an amazing story. Michael Moorcock, Christopher Priest, Brian Aldiss, and yeah, lots and lots of others. Titles like The Total Experience Kick by Charles Platt, J.G. Ballard's The Assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, considered as a downhill motor race. Yes, right, so at some point I'm going to want to get my new wave on. That's what I'm going to do. Then we have Anne Sheridan and the Sign of the Sphinx.
Oh.
So, Whitman Publishers, authorised edition. So, Anne Sheridan, film star. This is in the 1940s.
Oh, it's
book
one
came
of
out.
those.
It's one of those,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So here's Anne Sheridan, a real film star, and this will be a sort of mystery story where Anne Sheridan is the hero, probably doing some kind of detecting. An original story featuring Anne Sheridan, famous motion picture star, the Oomph Girl, doesn't say that, as the heroine, by Kathryn Heisenfelt, authorised edition. So when I get into this, I'll know whether it's one of the ones where it's literally Anne Sheridan as an actor who gets involved in a mystery, or like the Ginger Rogers one I've read, where they're called by the name of the real person. They have their sort of qualities, but it isn't actually them. There could be like a secretary or whatever. So we'll see. So yes, Anne Sheridan, Sign of the Sphinx. Okay, nearly there. Couple more. Jane Converse, Nurse in London.
Oh, Jane
bit
Converse.
of category romance. So in successive Garb August months I've read novels by Jane Converse I've really liked. They usually involve nurses of some description in some kind of perhaps unusual setup, like surfing or an art colony. So this one is London. Lee Watson, the star of The Tree of Life, the top rock group in England and America, lay in a hospital bed, victim of a crippling motorcycle accident. But all the other ones have been the sort of stuff about the setting has been really well done. So how she handles the, as it says here, the frenzied psychedelic landscape where the Tree of Life flourished, we will see. So
Is that a large print version?
it is, yes,
Yeah.
again from a library, don't know which,
Yeah.
Liverpool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, The Black Hand, Craig Kennedy. Who wrote these? Craig Kennedy's the character. Arthur B. Reeve. The Black Hand, The Adventures of Craig Kennedy, Scientific Detective. 1912. So, sort of no dust jacket, but a picture has been like stuck on, which is rather lovely. A collection of short stories. One of them is called The Black Hand. He's a scientific detective, not an occult detective. So I thought it'd be an interesting counterbalancing thing to read a scientific detective alongside all the occult detectives we'll be looking at in Occult Detective October. And I've also got a bunch of other stories with hand in the title, so it's going to be the week of hands at some point, including this hand, the Black Hand. So yeah,
Big hand.
those are books that I've bought. At some point I'll read them, probably.
All being well.
Then talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens.
This stuff I'm really keen on. The Anne Sheridan just looks mad. New Wave SF, who can say?
You're just going to say all of them are the ones you're really keen on.
Well, that's probably why I bought them,
Yeah.
due to being enthusiastic about the contents, as I
Correct.
anticipate it being. Back soon with something else.
Bye.
Bye.